And I'm back with another lesson from the rooftop. Hi, I'm Zara Green, and I'm glad you're here. I heard somebody ask earlier, what is a lesson that you learned from your father? And I gotta tell you, I had a hard time just kind of even starting because even till this day, he is the most important person in my life. And when I say the most important, then the most supportive my entire life. When I say I know what it is to be celebrated, darling, celebrated, that was my entire life. That man saw me from the moment I got here. That man accepted who I was from the moment I got here. It was obvious when I came out of the womb, I was different than the other ones. And he was completely excited about that, mostly because he saw himself in me. Physically, yes, because he and my mom are definitely different when you look at the two. So I came out looking just like him, have looked like him my entire life. And I guess, when I hear people who have not grown up with their families say the one thing they've always wanted was to look at somebody who looked like them, I get it, because I look just like my dad, and while my brother favored my father too, I was more like him than any of his children. And he was a Sagittarius, gregarious, fun-loving, love to have fun kind of guy. And the rest of my family is pretty reserved. But I came out the womb, honey, with some spice and spark that lit him up right away. And I believe that I was exactly what he needed. And when I talk about families and there being oppositions, the oppositions are usually what I call this invisible dividing line. And that a dividing line is more on temperaments than it is anything. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But let's get back to this question and let me tie it back into some lessons from the rooftop. The lesson is, you don't need anybody, baby. I heard that my entire life. So my father telling me that you don't need anybody, baby, and he'd always follow it up with, but as long as there's breath in my body, you'll have me. But baby, one day I won't be here either. And you need to know, you do not need anybody. And let me tell you something. While I was sitting on that rooftop, I had come to a point where every person in my life I had to cut out, because where I needed to go and the transcendence from codependence, because that's what I came here for. How do I know that? Because I did what I'm telling you to do, dig deeper. Dig deeper into the different tools. There are so many tools, y'all, that are available to us that most of us have been scared away from. But I'm telling you, from the time I got here, I've been rejected. I've been rejected in so many ways. When you are rejected from the spout you came out of. And this is not to create a villain out of my mother. It is because we need to understand that why we came here is more than the relationships we have. But we've been conditioned to believe that that's all we have. No, you got to stop seeing life in these silos and see life in its totality. And you are here for a sliver of time, but where the F were you before you got here? And where are you going after you leave? You got to stop looking at life in your lifespan. Now, I'm bringing that up because we hear so much about life and what life brings you and the law of attraction and how when things continue in your life that looks like stuff that is unwanted, then you are attracting it. And we've got to, I will not stop saying this, we've got to dig deeper on why things are what they are in our lives. Is there a element of truth to the fact that we can attract things to ourselves? Yes, because everything is energy. But if we don't understand that there are certain lessons that we came here to learn and to overcome, then you will think that you can just, switch the energy in order to stop it. It's not just about switching the energy. Most of the time, it's about understanding what keeps showing up in order to transcend it. But you can't transcend things until you know that's what you came here to do. Okay? So my father telling me that you don't need anybody, baby, and he'd always follow it up with, and he said, and I want to make it clear that he always had to tell me that because my entire life has been about what felt like being betrayed or backstabbed or not being a part of groups, or I joined something and it seemed like something unfair would happen. And I'm talking my whole life was things like that. And so what that can do to a person is make you think that the way you show up, something is always wrong with. And when you're young, you might be trying to change that. You might be trying to change who you are naturally. Here was the gift that my father was to me. Here's one of the gifts that my father was to me, because there is no way to even, I can't say all that man has meant to me. He was my everything for most of my life. I make no bones about the fact that I had a very difficult relationship with my mother. Now, let me, before I even finish that, say that while my father was the most important person in my life, my mother was my greatest teacher. All right? And the more I'm talking to you in more granular ways about my relationships with them, then you, too, if you've got a difficult relationship with a parent, will understand how the difficulties fall right in line with what you came here to transcend. Okay? Because you need to understand you came here to transcend the things that are the most difficult in your life, not to find fault in the people who brought the difficulty. Because one of the things that I'm really talking about now is to understand that everybody is the villain in somebody else's story. So just like I could easily say my mother was the villain in my story, she was actually my greatest teacher. And on another lesson from the rooftop, I'll dig into how that was. But right now, this is about the lessons my father taught me about how I don't need anybody and how pivotal that was and how it illuminated itself while I was on the rooftop after trying my whole life to assimilate and try to keep some people in my life. Baby, here's what I know for sure. After approaching 6 decades, I do not need anybody. That doesn't mean you don't, because our lessons are different. Keep listening. I've heard this more times than I can count. Baby, you don't need nobody. But as long as there's breath in my body, you'll have me. But baby, one day I won't be here either. And you need to know, you do not need anybody. Okay, I'll have to talk more about temperaments and all the tools in another one, because I'm keeping these short. Wrapping this one up. I'll see you tomorrow.